Alright guys, so welcome back. A lot of you guys liked the first video. I figured I would keep trying to go with these. Again, I don't know how great they really are. But yeah, so today I just wanted to talk a little bit about my experience with chemotherapy and what I had to go through for chemo. Sorry, I definitely have food over here because I am starving. I went to a bridal expo today. Not that I'm engaged, I went for the free food. But I'm starving and I had a little bit too much wine, so we're gonna eat. I have a notebook over here, so if I'm looking, that's what I'm looking at. The chemotherapy that I went through is called BEP. It's a compound chemo of bleomycin, etoposide, and cisplatin, which are all 3 different chemo drugs that I got. The way my cycle would work is that I, on Monday, would get all 3. Tuesday through Friday, I would get etoposide and cisplatin, and then for the next 2 weeks, just on that Monday, I would go and just get the bleomycin. So my infusions during the full week were about 6 hours, I'd say. 6 or 7 usually, and then Mondays they were about an hour because I also had to have fluids with them. So it wasn't that bad time-wise on the Mondays. The full week was kind of stressful, and then so it was a 21-day cycle. So I would do the full week, Monday, and then I would repeat it. Some of the side effects that could have been a potential, some of the things that could have been potential side effects were hair loss, fever, nausea, vomiting, bone aches were one. The potential in the future to develop leukemia, I'm at a higher risk for that now because of the, I think it's the etoposide that did that. What else? Pretty much everything with chemo that could have been a side effect was a side effect of could have been a side effect with these 3. And if you are someone who's going through chemo, definitely talk to your doctor. They will explain all of that, and they actually should give you papers and break down like what the side effects of each drug you're getting are, so you can be aware and watch for them. They definitely monitor you very, very closely during chemo for your side effects, so you have to tell them every single day, like, did you have a fever? Did you throw up? Did you go to the bathroom? Stuff like that. They monitor everything, and it's really good, and they need to know everything because it doesn't take long for things to go from 0 to 100. So I started cycle 1. I went through 3 cycles. I started cycle 1 on October 1st of 2018. And the first week went pretty decent. It wasn't anything too bad. I did travel back and forth between my home and Iowa City. My parents, my mom, my dad, my grandmas, yeah, both grandmas all took a turn driving me. And I wasn't too bad until about that Thursday. I'd say I started to get a little nauseous, and then on Fridays when it really hit in. Friday, I actually remember my dad drove me, and as soon as we pulled into the parking lot, thank God I had a trash can in my car. As soon as we stopped, I leaned over and I just vomited everywhere, and he's just like, "Oh, are you ready to do this?" Yeah, as much as I am. So yeah, I got sick on Friday. They had an issue with my port. I did have a port in, and that's basically, if you don't know what a port is, it's like a little silicone rubber thing here that goes under your chest. It's subclavicle, it goes under your chest. I think that's the right term. Don't kill me, nurses, if I'm wrong. And then it has a tube that goes like up through your neck and down through your heart. And so they had an issue with my port because I was so swollen around it. So that was a little scary on Friday also. But for the most part, everything was fine. And I came home Friday night and I went to bed, and basically the nausea hit really, really bad. And from Friday night until Sunday night, I did not move out of bed. I was nauseous, and when I wasn't nauseous, I was very, very exhausted from the medicine I was taking for the nausea. So basically those 2 days I didn't move, and that's not like me. My dogs didn't get let out. If, you know, Ashley didn't let them out, I didn't eat, I didn't do anything. And on Sunday night, my parents came over and they're like, this is not okay. You cannot just lay here in your own, like, you can't do this. You gotta get up and you gotta move. You gotta eat. You gotta take your dogs out. You gotta move around a little bit. You can't sleep. So they decided that I would start to stay at their house because I was incapable of taking care of myself, which I agreed with. It wasn't like they're like, Brittany, you're doing this. It was a group decision. So that Monday, I went up to Iowa City again to get my bleomycin. I was feeling pretty good. I wasn't feeling too bad. And I was like, okay, well, you know, it's good to know that, like, there's an end in sight to this stuff. Like, maybe I'll be okay. And I stayed at my parents' that night, and it was probably about 6 o'clock at night, and I started vomiting again. And I had the worst bone aches that I could ever imagine, and I was so sick. And I felt defeated. Like, I finally felt better just in time to be knocked down. And unfortunately, that's the way that chemo is. You feel better just in time to be knocked back down. So, yeah, and then week 3, I went up to get my bleomycin again. And I was waiting and waiting to get sick, and I never did. I was actually fine that week. I don't know why. I think it's because I had a little bit of a break in there, but I was fine. What else? I don't remember when. I was trying so hard to find the post from this, but I couldn't. I think it was, yeah, it was Monday night. So after my first infusion of just the bleomycin, that night that I got sick again and felt defeated, I actually had to go back up to the Iowa City ER because I spiked a fever of over 100.4, and so they told me to go up there, and they had to give me IV fluids. We were there all night, came home at 6 a.m. and slept. I was not admitted that time. That was the only time I was not admitted into the hospital. I was just given IV fluids, my fever broke, and we were sent back home. During cycle 1 is also when my hair started to fall out, and I can make a whole video on my experience on like with it falling out and how all that happened. But that's when we shaved my head, and I lost about 80% of my hair during that time. Cycle 2 started, and I went up on my first Monday, ready to go, ready to do another round of chemo, and we could not. My white blood cell count was too low, and your white blood cells are what fight any infection, so they were too low. And I had to get an injection to help raise them. It was actually a series of 3 injections, and that was a whole insurance deal. I was supposed to be able to go to the hospital here in town to get them, and ultimately wasn't able to. Had to go up to Iowa City for those also. My dog's on there squeaking our toy. So I had to go up to Iowa City to get those, and so my Monday through Friday turned into Wednesday through like Sunday, something like that. I don't exactly remember. But this one was probably one of the hardest ones for me. I was able to go Wednesday, Thursday, Friday to just my normal infusion suite, but because they were closed on the weekends for Saturday and Sunday, I had to actually go to different parts of the hospital. So like one time I was in the leukemia ward, the other time I was in the gynecological hospital area. I don't know what it's called. It's where I was admitted the first time though for all of this. So I did that. I came home and got very sick. I was very sick by like Wednesday this time. Not Wednesday, but like what about Friday this time. I was vomiting really bad. I couldn't keep any food down. I wouldn't eat. I was sleeping all the time from the amount of medications they had me on. You guys, they had me on different days. I would be on a variety of different things. I would be on supplements if I needed them. For like magnesium and other electrolytes. I would be on Benadryl. I would be on nausea medicine, so I was getting like Zofran and Aloxi and Ativan at one point regularly For nausea, none of them worked. I tried absolutely everything. They, at some point, not during this time, but during my 3rd cycle, they actually gave me a patch they give to people on cruise ship. It's a $2,000 patch. I did not pay for it. My insurance thankfully approved me for it, but that didn't even really help. So yeah, and at this point, I come home on Sunday, I'm feeling miserable, and on Monday, I'm throwing up so much, I have to go back up to the hospital, and this was actually on Halloween, I remember it. So I think that was Monday. It might have been Tuesday. I don't know, guys. On Halloween, I went back up, and I ended up being hospitalized, and I was there for 2 nights, given IV fluids. And during this time, I had a hearing test because my ears were ringing really bad from chemo. I had a lung test, and my lung capacity was down quite a bit. And so we were a little bit worried about that. And at that point, we decided, for my sake, we would discontinue my bleomycin. So the one that I got every single Monday, we were going to continue because that one can affect your lungs. And because my lung capacity was down a little bit, they didn't want to create more damage giving me the treatment and, you know, have me be on like oxygen or something. So yeah, we decided to discontinue that. That's where I quit writing my notes. So the rest of this is going to be really interesting. Cycle 3, we, you know, at this point, so I got a 2-week break basically before cycle 3, and I was feeling pretty good. I was back at work and I was ready to go. And cycle 3, I would say, was not as hard as cycle 2. Cycle 2 was definitely the worst for me. Cycle 3, I got nauseous, but my big thing is that by Friday, so I did Monday through Friday. Again, we were able to, like, because I got those 2 weeks off, I was able to go back to Monday through Friday instead of waiting. So Monday through Friday, and I was nauseous still. I had lost probably about 20 pounds during this time just from not eating. Thank God for that 2-week break. I was able to get my strength up a little bit. And I was still nauseous, still, you know, same thing. But during this time, that Friday I went in and I ended up being actually very dizzy. And what ended up being the case, it was so bad I was in a wheelchair. What ended up being the case is that my red blood cell count was low this time. And so I had to, after my chemo infusion, be admitted into the hospital, have 2 units of blood transfused into me. And for some reason on this Friday, I wasn't as nauseous as I had been even earlier that week. I think it's because I had so many different medications in my system at this point. So I slept. My parents and I were able to order pizza that night as a celebration. So that was nice. I remember that. It's kind of a funny story. I hadn't wanted food at all this entire like 9-week period, and all I wanted was BLT pizza, and none of the places there had lettuce on their pizza, like had lettuce for pizzas. So that was a thing. So then as far as like how chemo works, if you've never seen it, for my hospital, every hospital is a little bit different. My hospital is this big room, and it's basically like different cubicles. So you can't really see other people, but there's no closed doors or anything. And you'll go in and you'll have a seat and you have a recliner and there's a chair for whoever drove you to sit. And I chose to do a port. You can also do a PICC line sometimes if it's in shorter treatments like mine was. So I chose to do a port just because a PICC line did not seem practical to me. Not for like my lifestyle, not with pets, not for the job I do. And so I did a port, and they would have a nurse come by and they would have to, let me back it up here. So before you go there, you actually have to go in and get blood drawn every single day, almost every single day. They always have to do your weight, they always have to do your blood pressure. 9 out of 10 days, they're gonna test either your electrolytes, your CBC, anything they're concerned about. They're gonna test it. Once your labs are back, they will take you back to this little cubicle and you will get your port accessed if it wasn't already accessed, which is basically they stick a needle in and it it has this crazy like bandage. I guess it's really not that crazy. It's just like a giant bandage that will keep it in. They'll run your infusion. For me, I mostly slept. I know a lot of people like will color or do crosswords or read. I had no energy this entire time, so I would sleep the entire infusion. My parents, my grandmas, they would, I don't really know what they would do. My mom would read, my dad would play games, my grandmas would color and read magazines and this and that. So that's what we did. And then they would de-access my port and drive me home. We definitely bonded with some of the nurses up there, so I hope that if you are going to go through chemo or have been through chemo, you get your favorite nurses. Other crazy things that happened to me during my experience with chemo, my grandma hit a deer on the way up one day. So we had to be taken to our hometown ER, and then I had to go back up for chemo. I had an allergic reaction to the adhesives, so it was like red and raw all over here. And they actually thought at one point that my port was rejecting from it. What else? My car was hit and run when it was outside of my parents when I was staying with them. I think that's it. But still, it was a crazy few months, you guys. Like, it was the craziest thing ever. Yeah. I'd be happy to answer any questions you guys have. Just leave them below, or I'm thinking I might do a Q&A, so if I get enough, I'll do a whole video on that. Otherwise, I will see you guys next time. I hope you learned something here, and if you're going to go through chemo, hopefully I wasn't too off subject or too a little bit of everywhere and helped you. But I will see you guys next time. Bye.